Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's OpenONU Go call. Thanks for joining. And as usual, the call is public and recorded. So please be mindful of the comments you make and the information you share with the team. It will be publicly shared with on YouTube. So just be aware of that. Today, this is actually 20th. We have a few updates on things that we need to take care of, and I think a few discussions we need to make. So I'm not going to go again in the roadmap. I'm just going to keep it there for our own benefit. Might move it up in the document. Next up is software update from Michael. Michael, do you want to give us an update on how things are progressing for the ONU software update?
I have to say there's not so much progress in this respect. We continued some tests with the void control application that you, Andrea, provided. That is a prerequisite for that, and the modified W core image. We found some smaller issues with that, and you already tried to correct that. Yeah. Otherwise, the state of that feature is still, let's say, more in preparation. So not really spent much effort on real implementation.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, I made a few changes to VoltCTL, VoltaLibGo, and the RW core, as Michael said. These are mainly to forward the properly the calls down to the device adapter, so to the OpenONU Go adapter. It's still, I would say, in an early phase of the implementation, meaning that as of today, the implementation works in the sense that it passes down the call and it does a few minimal checks against the ID that is given and a few other things. As I was discussing with Michael, there are a few changes that I want to make to the protos. And I started a proposal for these updated protos, an updated API that I want to have, given some of the knowledge that we now have and some of the, just like by looking at the code and things like that, I found out a few things that I really like to change. So that might be something that I will do in the future. And I'm just going to finish it up and push it as a patch for review so we can spend some time on it. And I'll probably discuss it either here or at TST to make sure we agree on it. Okay. Yeah, but at least we have a working path. Do you expect the OMCI related tasks to be complicated, Michael, or that should be fairly straightforward given that the API is stable and working?
Well, I think it's a quite more or less complex task, so I think it will require still some time to implement this. We have to take care about possible parameters on the download, the window size and things like that. So I don't think that it will be fairly easy, but at least we know what to do, and just have to start working on that.
Okay, good. And again, when you do start working on that, if you have like some things that would be better to be capable of configuring via Volta, and that you don't see a place where to do that, let me know, because we might roll those in the new version of the protos that we're gonna build. So yeah, let me know. Okay. Any questions, comments on this? No? Okay. Then next up is Girish. Can you give us an update on the PM configs?
Yeah, I have addressed all the comments from all of you. Thanks for the review. There are a couple of minor things from Mikhail that I just saw today morning. Probably I need to put in some comments in code for future action. And yeah, that's it. I mean, I have verified it to be working locally. There are a few more, PM things that we could add in the future, but the framework is there right now and could be easily enhanced for future.
Do you mind creating a JIRA for these PMs that can be added?
Yeah, sure.
So there was a comment from Michael that your patch somewhat overlaps with the one that he has. That is a base for the image update, and if it be okay to merge one or the other, the order of merging was up for discussion. What would be your preference? Would it be okay, Girish, if you have to rebase your patch on top of Michael's, or would you prefer to merge yours, given that it's finished, and then we rebase Michael's on top of it?
Perhaps just as an information, why I would like this order. It's because the patch that I delivered includes some changes which are required for the Atran software to run together with the Atran OLT simulator. And this kind of image based on my patch was already tested together with that. So we are working, we know that it is working in that condition that I provided to them. And that's why I normally would like to hand at least one image over to them where I know it has the same stand, so the same issue. And that's why I would like to add Girish patch on the metric issues as a later step.
Yeah, I'm okay either way. So are you suggesting that I rebase later? Not a problem.
Okay, maybe Michael, if you can then. So what my suggestion would be is, if you could, this is the one, right? Is this the patch, Michael? If you're trying to speak, you're muted. Oh, this is the patch. So Michael, can you please remove the work in progress here? Otherwise, this doesn't go in. And when you do, I'll issue a recheck. We merge this one and then we merge Girish's one. Okay?
Yeah, okay. I thought I just indicate that something as work in progress was already done as part of this change. But
well,
yeah, if you want.
What you can do is, instead of implementation of ONU software download, you can do like skeletal structure for ONU software download, because there's really no implementation. Yeah, just change the commit. Just change the commit message, send it up, and I'll make a final review, and then we'll merge it, and then I'll ask Girish to rebase his.
By the way, you can see that no Jenkins job was running on the latest patch.
So I think that was the fault, because we had some Jenkins issues a few days ago. So just make the changes that we just discussed, and then we'll make sure that it either runs or we trigger a recheck. We do something along those lines to make sure it gets merged.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Andrea.
Okay. Yes.
Is there documents for this PM development in ONU adapter Go?
Official
No.
document? No. Maybe Grish, if you can, put together a list in the README. So
Yeah, I mostly replicated what was already there in Python adapter and some reference from OpenOLT adapter. I didn't create any document. What is that you're looking for? I mean, I can take that as an input.
Okay, I'm looking for the counters that are implemented. So are they the same with the PyVolta version or not? And also I'm looking, I have a requirement like putting an enabled flag for PM config, top of the PM config. Now there is a enable flag for PM itself for group, but there is no flag on top of the groups. I mean, to enabling all of the counters and disabling all of the counters. So generally, I'm looking for the difference between the PyVolta version and the current version.
Oh, I mean, the interface is the same. I mean, I think in event.proto, we have the PM configs. I mean, there are a set of protos. I mean, the implementation complies by the proto interface. So what you see in Python implementation, you see the same thing here.
Okay, I mean, this requirement can be done with another, say, task. Anybody else can do this. I only want to learn the difference currently. If you say there's no difference with the PyVolta version, then okay.
Yeah, there's also one thing that you need to be aware of in the, this came up just earlier this week, the frequency value in the Volta libgo version is in seconds, whereas the PyVolta one is in 1/10 of a second. And that probably will be changed. The OpenOLT uses 1 second as the increment. So that will probably change for everybody coming up, but just so you're aware that there are some PM corrections that may occur in the next week or two.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's probably the only one that may affect you.
Okay, this is the issue you talked on the stack.
Yeah, yes, and what I'll do is if I see anything that might conflict, I'll watch what you do in the ONU version so that we don't, it'll work right off the bat with the current NIM monitoring stack.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chip. Yeah, I noticed that the Python one was doing 1/10 of the frequency of configured. Yeah, this is a difference that I see in the implementation in the Go version.
Yeah, that was an old more request, and I think that's 1/10 of a second is way too small for a disaggregated solution.
Maybe I did not understand, but when you said that there is a flag for all of them, right now it's, or you would like a flag for all of them. I missed this point.
Oh, it's just, no, it's the default value is 150 and it's in 1/10 of a second, but it looks like we'll probably be changing the units to be seconds because it makes more sense.
No, I was talking to Mahir. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
There's a flag for all PMs. I mean,
Yeah.
You config the PMs that you can enable them or disable them. Mm-hmm. This is done on PM metric itself level, on group level, but I think there is a need to do it on top of group level. I mean, enabling all of the PM counters and disabling all of them. If you do enable for a specific PM counter, then it becomes enable or disable. You can disable it on group level also with group enable flag, something like that. But there is no flag to totally close the say, counters for a device or totally enable them?
Okay.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. So to clarify, Andrea, I mean, there is configuration to individually enable or disable a PM counter, and you can do it on a group level as well.
Yeah.
But Mahir, I have no support for that at the moment. The only thing that we can change in this first iteration is the PM frequency. But yeah, we
can we
I
see?
see. That's why I said this can be done on another task. I also only I'm questioning about it if there is something like that.
Yeah, perhaps that could be done by setting the frequency to 0.
Okay.
And that might, if that's handled by adapters, that'll keep from having to do any API changes. It'd just be a clarification of existing APIs.
Girish, I mean, that can be something that can be done currently. I mean, not about this issue, but another issue for me. You're in default on ONU adapter, I mean, sets the PM config as enable for all of the PMs. In default, it is all of the counters are enabled. So we may change this and I mean make this configurable or something that we can change. Because there, I'm asking for that because there is a requirement from Netsia and from Türk Telekom to, I mean, making all of the counters say disable on startup, then turn off them on demand. So if you can put a capability like that, then we can, I mean, develop the current, I mean, incoming requirement on top of that.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Is it okay if I, do this immediately after this code merges?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
For me, it's okay.
Yeah, I would say so, Girish, in a separate Jira and a separate patch. I think to track the work, that is the best way. And Mahir, you also asked for another PM, which is this counter set.
No, that's not. It's the enable flag we talked about.
Oh, okay. So that was the only requirement. There was not another one. Sorry, I mistaken that.
Yeah, I just looked at the Pi Volta version, and if you set the frequency to 0 on the config update, it will turn off the polling.
I think this is actually a good way in order not to change the API.
Okay, yeah. Fair.
Maybe it needs to be documented. If you can do that, Girish, just put it somewhere in the code or somewhere, like maybe add a doc about the PM configs.
Yeah, let me create one.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Anything else on this?
Yeah, perhaps the question once more, as it was marked here, some of the stuff would have been more clear if Girish would have done a demo for that. So also for the others to understand how that works and how it is used.
Oh, we can arrange that. I think we can definitely do that. Maybe Girish, maybe next week. Even if the feature is merged, I mean, there is really no problem in that. I mean,
I have a setup where I can show something, but yeah, I mean, if you want to take a look, or I could do it next week also with some more changes.
I mean, if you have it up and running right now and it takes you 5 minutes, maybe just we go to the next step. You check that everything is okay, and then you show it to us. Would that be okay?
Yeah, sure. I can show you now. Let me share my screen. I mean, I thought I'll show something today, but based on all the comments, I thought maybe I'll show it next week. But yeah, I can take a couple of minutes.
Yeah, go ahead, Girish. Please take your screen.
Okay. Continue. Let me know when you can see my screen.
We can see it.
Okay, so I have OLT up and running. I have a couple of ONUs here. So this one is the OLT, and I have a couple of alpha ONUs on this one. So I'm going to show the PM counters on this particular ONU, CF70. Sorry. Let me first dump the PM config on this particular ONU. So as you might already know, the default PM collection frequency was 150 seconds. For the interest of this demo, I had already changed the default frequency to 50 seconds, so we don't have to wait for 2.5 minutes to get the frequency. So you should see the PM frequency every 15 seconds now. So what I'm going to do next is change the frequency to 5 seconds, and then you will see PMs received much more often. So you receive the PM counters here. See on the screen. Currently, we collect the optical power metrics that are collected from the ANIG ME. So let me try to. So where's the speed? Sorry. So this is one of the metrics that we collect, the optical power metrics, and we collect the received power and transmit power. So this is a 2's complement of, this is represented as a 2's complement of the power in dBm. So this is one of the metrics. And the other metrics that we collect is the uni status. The uni status is collected from the uni G ME if and PPTP ME if available, and also the VEIP ME if available. Let me convert this into a proper format as well. There are some improvements that could go in here probably in a subsequent patch. This one is actually the admin state that's collected from the uni GME, but nowhere here it says what ME this particular metric is collected from. And you also, sorry, just a second. I think there are multiple UniG instances here, so that's why you see multiple instances of them here. And then you also have the statistics collected from the PPTP instance. So there are multiple of them. So you see multiple instances of those metrics here. The uni admin state 1 means it's locked. The uni admin state, you should have one more. Uni admin state 0 is unlocked. Since we enable only one of the uni ports, so you see the uni admin state 0 for only one of the instances.
So that was one of the questions we have discussed in the code review here. Is it visible which interface is concerned by one of these parameters here?
Yeah, exactly. So what I planned to do was include the ME instance ID as part of the metadata, if that helps. So do you think that that's a good idea? I mean, that way we could know which part.
There is also the interface ID and the ONU ID, if you look there.
Yeah, probably have the uni ID here. or have the uni ID as well as the ME instance ID as part of the metadata?
Well, that is something that might be discussed to use the ME instance ID, but at least in the end, you have to map that to some interface that is known to the management system, I think. And if you have the management system, in Volta, I think you have these logical ports with this specific Volta numbering. So it might be good, I don't know, to use also the logical port number here or something like that, so that it's more easy to map that identification to what is available to the rest of the Volta system management.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I mean, this is, I don't know. I mean, I'm open to all the inputs here. We could have the logical port number here, somewhere in the metadata that maps to what the management system would see, or also have the uni ID. I mean, interface ID, ONU ID, uni ID is actually that gives you the logical port number. I mean, they are the inputs to derive the logical port number.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can discuss further on Slack, or I mean, if you have any inputs here, that's fine too.
Girish, also, do you mind showing the command you use to get these PMs in the terminal? That so if somebody wants to try it out, they have their command. No, the other one.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's the volt_cutl, and you specify the IP port of the Kafka instance and event, listen, show body, and for how long you want to keep looking for this messages, and output in JSON. I think F is follow. I think F is, I'm not sure.
Okay.
And the way to change the frequencies, I mean, that's the only allowed configuration that we could change at the moment. So what you do is set, let me change it to 5, and then specify the device ID. So the default frequency is changed to 5 now. We don't support grouping and frequency override at the moment. So grouping is basically you can group various metrics into groups, which has a unique group name. And frequency override means that whatever is the frequency that you specify here, the adapter could actually override that frequency and use its own. I have no idea, I mean, why that's needed, but that's something that existed already.
Yeah, and the other question that was discussed before, it seems there is no real way to modify the enable status of the group or individual instances or something like that at the moment, yes. To change
Sorry, what was the question?
enable disable state.
For one doesn't, yeah, of 1 PM.
Yeah, we don't support that at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
That'll come in subsequent patch.
And that is what we were discussing before, that if you set it should be that if you set the frequency to 0, you're actually telling it to disable it.
I don't want to try that now and cause that.
No, totally fine, Girish. But yeah, agreed.
Yeah, but of course, I think it would also be interesting to have an opportunity to configure specific, let's say groups of this metric collection, for instance, to enable only the optical parameters or to only enable the UNI status information. because the information itself I have seen is in the database. There's this attribute which would allow for something like that. So seems the only thing that is missing is some means to modify that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We'll do that. I have not tried that, but yeah, I mean, I have seen that work in the Python implementation. Should be possible to implement. We'll do that in the next batch.
Okay, thanks, Girish.
For me, it was also interesting that all this stuff is based really on the numbers that are delivered via ONC. So there's at the moment no intention or no activity here to interpret the values in a readable form. For instance, the power level into real dBm numbers or things like that. So this is left obviously to some outside management system, yes.
Yeah, I mean, these are something that is collected directly from the OMCI MEs. So the adapter doesn't do any conversion.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions for Girish?
Is it possible to change the frequency for a group of or a subset of ONUs?
Yes, it's possible. At least the interface supports that, but yeah, not done at the moment.
But you have to list all the numbers, right? You can't do anything else. It's not possible to partly qualify because it's a random number, right?
Not sure I understood your question.
When you want to, or probably you want to increase the frequency for a particular ONU type, is this also possible?
Particular ONU type. Well, I mean, it's done on a device basis, device ID basis. So you are saying that I want to do only for Broadcom ONUs, not Actron ONUs,
or
something
Alpha
like that.
or Sercom or something like this.
I don't think so. Yeah, because the PM config is associated with a device ID, not a device type.
You'd have to script it by looking at the bulk kill device list, searching for the vendor ID numbers.
And it probably is also not possible to change the system-wide default, right? The default would be 15 seconds for all, could not be changed.
No, again, yeah, the PM config itself is associated with the device ID. There is no master PM config or something like that.
So the 15 seconds would be the config for every ONU until I input this command, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I see. I'm asking because we probably have the same issue with this audit interval. So we have to configure it somehow. I don't know if I think it's not yet implemented, right? That the possibility to change the audit interval, MIP audit interval for ONUs from the external.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of these probably can best be done with also CLI options for the adapter defaults.
Okay.
In the future.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll take back presentation rights from you, Girish. Thanks a lot for the demo. It was great. Very insightful. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. Okay, so next up is an update on the testing side with the stuff that Torsten is working on. Torsten, do you mind giving us a few news on that?
only the test cases running for all three workflows for DT, TT, and AT&T. And it's uploaded. And currently I'm working on a nightly job for Jenkins for all these new test cases for reconcile and restart. And in discussion with Hardik, we came to the point that we should decide which test cases we should keep in the Zenity part, which runs always a patch is delivered, and which we should remove to the nightly run. I think we can discuss this offline tomorrow or when the Jenkins jobs runs the nightly successfully.
Yeah, I would say so that let's first have the Jenkins job run, and then when that is running, we have the confidence that everything is tested and we can start looking over what to remove. I would think that it would be a good discussion to have with the group here. So maybe when the Jenkins job is running, you could take a look at what's in the per patch set verification pipeline and make a proposal on what you think should be there and what you think can be taken out, and maybe we can discuss it with the group as soon as you have it. Would that work? Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. And thanks a lot. Having the work that you're doing and running in nightly and on a per patch set, some of them, it's great. And then I know you also work with Hardik for the for running it on hardware, which is great. And just this is incredibly good to have that set of testing. So thanks. Okay. Next up, Holger, I know you started looking into the MIB audit resync. Is there anything we need to talk about here?
Yeah, perhaps we can discuss this small document I created. I had a look into the MIB audit resync implementation of the Python adapter and wrote down some findings, and at the end, the proposal how it could be, this issue could be handled for the Golang adapter. Yeah, what I've seen is currently the MIB audit is completely disabled in the Python adapter because, according to my findings, because the audit interval is configured to 0 currently, and this is valid for all ONUs. This is adapter-wide configuration. So, Chip, do you know the history behind this? I think you found that. Have you found that that Broadcom ONUs do not support the upload when once provisioned?
Yeah, they supported the uploads. So I think that a lot of that occurred when the a lot of the Go versions were converted. Matt Generett from AT&T, excuse me, AT&T disabled it for some reason. Excuse me. So I'm not sure why it was. I guess it was just left disabled and not enabled later on. That was after I had left from Adtran to go to Tibet.
But it's okay. Nevertheless, I had a look into the implementation, and I've seen or have calculated also the amount of messages we would need for this approach regarding downloading or uploading the full MIB all the time. That's why I made it's a suggestion of this two-step approach at the end, that we let base the audit itself on the MDS counters only. So check periodically the MDS counter, and if there's a deviation between ONU and the ONU adapter, then check it again. And when there's again a deviation, then the idea is to make a MIP reset and to provision the ONU directly again without trying to resync, and only to have a second step with a much wider frequency to have a resync mechanism, which is based on the dynamic configuration of the ONU itself. It means to get next, to send out get and get next requests, which represents the traffic configuration of the ONU, and check the results or the responses with the configuration we expect the ONU to have. So the idea was to skip the MIP upload cycle, because it generates a big amount of messages which will be exchanged. I made a calculation. If we support 1,000 ONUs, and if we would keep the audit cycle of 1 minute or 60 seconds, then we would need up to 1 million extra ONU messages going through the system. And I don't know if it is too much load for this, or if we have to decrease the number of MEs we are checking, because during MIP upload, a lot of MEs will be transferred we do not need or do not care about, or which are not used or are not necessary for the current configuration. That's why it was this idea to change this. So that means there were already some opinions about this two-step approach, and I would like to hear what's your idea about it, or if you have concerns with it.
Yeah, it's just whether it'd be too service affecting to do the mid reset. So that might be dependent on whether an operator will want that. As you do implement it, one of the suggestions you might do is, when you do the MIB upload for audits, is to move it to the high priority channel, the TIDs that are 8,000 hex and above. That way it does not tie up the provisioning side of the channels. You can do those in parallel, so that would, and do it at a lower frequency. So when you do actually support that. But typically a lot of reprovisioning, I guess it just depends on how the device adapter works, because if the MEs are correctly implemented down eventually on the ONU, it should resolve the services, not necessarily the sequence. But mid auditing is problematic anyway.
So you mean you should rely on the upload, not on get next approach?
Oh, well, you do a MIB upload. MIB upload does the get next. So you can rely on that. You just have to be careful on how you do your comparisons and about provisioning during an upload and audit process.
There's also the problem that we had to freeze all the other configurations which coming in during this process. So probably we would have to buffer somehow remote procedure calls or inter-adapter messages, which are arriving us during the processing of the MIP sync or MIP audit functionality. That's why I wanted to keep it as short as possible.
Yeah, you might want to, when you actually implement it, you might want to use the context that the upload is running in and have that where you can cancel it. So if you do get a set, a disruptive operation like a set or other issue, you can abort the MIB upload or the audit in the final one. But I've not worked too much with the Golang version adapter to know how easy that might be.
And what is your general opinion about this two-step approach to only to let the MIB audit only based on the MDS?
That would probably be fine. The MIB reset, you have to make sure that the operators are well aware that that's how the reconciliation is done on a problem, because that is disruptive. But if that's the only way to get to a more stable state quicker, it might be acceptable to the operators.
Probably, as I said before, during the PM presentation, we would need the external configuration command for the audit, right? For example, to disable it at all, or probably some more parameters.
That would probably be wise, because you might find that some ONUs may not even do MDS correctly. I've seen that. I've seen some that have always reported 0 and that also do not properly increment it in the manners it's supposed to be.
That's why was also my question before, if you could change this for a subset of ONUs for a special ONU types, Perhaps and a special ONU type does not support it at all, and that you could disable it partially for this ONU type,
Yeah, I would probably test it. I mean, that was the idea behind the Python adapter, where you could actually derive another adapter from the base. But I know that's a long-term approach for the Golang version. So the main idea behind the base OpenONU device adapter is that it works with most of them that are implemented according to the spec, and derived adapters could drive if needed.
Okay. And
so I don't know how you do that in a whole unified adapter for everyone to keep them happy. It would have to be a setting where you perhaps come up and have the default adapter audit to be 0, and then on a per device basis, or vendor basis, you can turn it on if needed, but that's extra APIs to have to manage.
You mean the approach, okay, we let it on 0 for all, for default, and then the operator has to explicitly configure it for a special ONU, for a subset of the ONUs, or for every ONUs, right?
Yeah, that might be the safest way to start with, until there's a way to derive adapters.
Okay, see.
Well, that sounds quite complicated for me.
Yeah,
normally the ONU adapter is not assigned based on the ONU itself.
Yeah.
And I would prefer to have more or less a command that can specify the vendor type, the vendor in the identification of some ONU that can be used in the adapter to skip the audit if wanted.
So it might be that the vendor ID is not enough, could be, that one ONU of the vendor is supporting it, the other not.
Can be discussed in that sense.
Yeah, this is unfortunately the problem that everybody who produces OLTs has had to do with their own CI stack, is that the interpretation of the standard, and depending on the vendor and even the software release, they can interpret the standard incorrectly or differently.
There's also another option. There's also another option, which could be that, again, as we said, we disable it for everybody. And then if an operator knows that the ONUs under a given OLT that is managed by Volta support it. All of them support it. It just turns it on for all of them for a specific OLT.
And that might be the safest. And if we develop the ONU device adapter to be as faithful to the standard and as lenient as possible, then offending ONUs will the firmware in the ONUs, the operators can exert their pressure on those vendors to be more conformant.
Do you know the history of this 60-second approach we already have in the Python version?
No, it was just a number picked out of the air. Typically, the 60, when the audit was performed, or
yes, the second 60 seconds between the audit iterations.
Oh, that was just a number to check the MDS. I think it was like check it every minute for MDS deviation, and then forced audit every 5 minutes was just that was just an initial values used for testing. It could be much different.
Andrea, do you know if you have any requirements by the operators regarding MIP audit?
I do not know exactly the amount of time or things like that. I can maybe if we compile a set of questions on what would be a preferred approach from an operator's perspective, or some few things that we would like to understand from them, we could possibly gather some feedback from the likes of, for example, in DT, Paul Wagner I think you would have definitely an opinion here. I bet that there are some folks in Netsia and Telecom that would have. So maybe if you have a set of questions, Holger, it would be nice to put them together.
I don't want to wake up sleeping dogs. Probably I don't know.
Well, we can always. So my question, my point is, we can always say yes to some, no to some, and in the future to some else. Yeah. Like having the knowledge is always good. What you do with that knowledge and how much you implement out of that knowledge, that's the next step, I would say. So if you have a set of questions, I would say just go ahead, put them maybe here in the bottom of the document here, and I can make sure that a few folks take a look at it. And maybe Burak
other approach would be to offer something and to see what's.
Well, the thing is that to offer something, you have to implement. If you already have questions before implementing, well, at least those, I would say, let's go ahead and ask them. Like the 60 seconds, would you like to turn them on or off? Because one dumb question that I have is, how many different vendors of an ONU are we expecting under one Volta deployment? Like within a single OLT, are we expecting 10 different vendors or are we expecting one? Because if we're expecting one, it makes our life a lot easier. At least in the first implementation, that we expect it's either an all or nothing. Does this OLT with this vendor ID and ONU model support audit or not? Yes, enable it. No, kill it. Like that. That's a fairly simple thing. So those type of questions, I think it's best to ask them first, as soon as we can. So if you have some of them, just put them here. And if anybody else has others, just put them down below, and we can. And I can make sure that we take a look at it collectively, and having them in writing, it's always easier. And then I can also ask a few folks from Turk Telekom and Deutsche Telekom to take a look at it and give us some feedback.
Chip, I only one remark. I ask you to elaborate a little bit more about your offer. Perhaps you can comment on that in this document.
Okay, yeah, I'll review it. Yeah, that was just a suggestion. If when you actually do the audit, if there's anything in the library that could be done to make the make it a little bit smarter on how you do the comparisons.
I think you are the expert in this area, so ideas are welcome.
Yeah. Okay. I'll add a little bit more on that. So. I will add a little bit more on that. So,
may I ask a fundamental question? Excuse me if this is wrong question, but what's the reason behind doing a periodic MIP resynchronization? I mean, which use cases are we covering with periodically going and checking the MDS counter?
But it is because there could some message could get lost on the way to the ONU, or some processing could fail and will not be correctly reported to the counterpart or to the other side, and that's why the G988 is suggesting this MIP audit process. I don't know if it is one could say, okay, when the traffic is not running anymore, then the customer will switch off the ONU and it will come up again. Why do we make such an effort to make all this MIP audit stuff? But
and also when we send a message on the channel, we have timeouts. Also, we have checks that check the responses of the OMC messages, etc. So I think we generally know if the configuration is successfully sent to ONU and ONU responded to these. So,
but so is that Maher, are you saying that, like, for example, Turk Telecom does not enable this at all?
No, I don't know if this is done currently in Telecom or not, but when I think the Python version is not doing this.
It has the capability to do it. It's just not.
Yeah.
It was never enabled.
Yeah, and we have some problems with some ONU types on resynchronization during the reconciliation. Because the MDS counters are not incremented correctly, so they are always different in OLT and ONU. So this is an endless resynchronization loop. So
that's a question. If we build in some problems here when we enable this functionality, I don't know.
The thing is, it's functionality that we shouldn't. So, in my opinion, we should not avoid implementing something because some ONUs have a problem with it. If the spec implements it, our OpenONU adapter is adherent to the spec.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm only trying to know the reason behind doing periodic MIP.
Yeah, so really the reason to me is that if something gets screwed up, we might find it easily with the resynchronization. And I agree we shouldn't send all the messages, as pointed out by Holger. We just check the counters, and if the counters are okay, we just say, okay, it's fine. And we can also say that if you don't support the counters, we're just gonna not do synchronization with you. I'm fine with that, with cutting that corner. I'm fine doing that. If you don't support the counters, we don't do synchronization because it would require too many messages. But if you do support the counters, I think it's a valuable thing to do because it might avoid us, or the operators, getting a call from somebody for which the ONU doesn't work, or it might avoid a reboot of the ONU from the customer because traffic was not working. So again, we might ask Turk Telecom and Deutsche Telekom, and they could say, "Nah, we don't use it." Then we don't implement it because it's lower level. But it was put on the agenda. On the roadmap for 2.7. So I think the agreement is that it's needed. But again, let's take those questions that you have, Holger. I'll make sure to hit up a few folks at Deutsche Telekom, and Mahir Burak, if you can help me get in touch with somebody that knows this level of OMCI specs and knows what Deutsche Telekom is interested in doing here, that would be appreciated. And after we answer those questions, we can go forward.
Yeah, sure.
Perhaps one remark for the sense of that web audit or resynchronization. I think it is especially needed in this system setup where we have a detached ONU OMSI stack working from the real system. One of the problems is that the ONU adapter, in my point of view, is not aware of any communication problems in the OMSI communication channel. So if that channel, for instance, is disrupted for a certain time, it might well be that, for instance, the ONU is reset in that time, exactly in that time, and then the communication channel is set up again, and we don't have any knowledge about such a state where the ONU was reset in between if we don't at least check the MDS. And if it is not supported by the ONU, the MDS counter, then for such a situation, it would really be necessary to at least verify the real configuration, if not doing the map upload.
And also we the resync part we would also need for the reconcile case. So that we have, this is the second step of this two-step approach. The resync we need for, if for example the ONU adapter reboots, then we would need this resync functionality to be able to reconcile the ONUs without reconfiguring them. So
yeah, on reconcile, restart, etc. cases, yeah, I agree. It's crucial. It's required.
Yeah,
asking the use case behind the periodic resynchronization.
Yeah. I see. You mean you would according to your opinion, the resync would only be needed for reconcile cases and not for periodic cases, right?
Yeah, I mean, because I cannot find the proper use case for that. Yeah, I mean, so I'm asking if there's a proper use case for that. Of course, this should be done. I'm not opponent of this idea. You know.
And that was probably the one Michael just stated, probably.
Okay. Thanks, guys. I think in the interest of time, let's wrap it up for the day. There were still a few topics. I'm sorry, Chip. You're the one getting off all the agendas in the last few days. I'll make sure to
chat with the Jira number for that second one.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Let me get that. Okay. Okay, perfect.
I think 3729, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. I'll make sure to put them up. And there's also the OMCI response stuff. I'll make sure to have them up for the next time, given that we have done some of these. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. I have to jump to another meeting, but it was a very useful one. Thanks for joining, and I'll talk to you on Slack or the mailing list, and see you next week. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.